Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We're back for another edition of Reasonable Doubt, brought to you by the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association. Sorry we had a little unexpected night off last week, but we're back this week, joined as always with my co-host Julio Vela. Julio?
Feeling good.
You got a week off.
Look, I got a week off.
To prepare for that fourth kid you got coming.
Yeah, got a week off.
Needed an extra week for that.
Got my wife pregnant. It's give and take in life.
Well, we're glad you're recovered from the shocking news that you got.
Oh man!
And we got a great show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. As always, we are brought to you by the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association, and we'll be here tonight for the next hour with our current president and our most recent past president, Doug Murphy and Tucker Graves. Guys, thanks for joining the show tonight.
Well, glad to be here. I've been here a few times. It's always great to see you two guys again. We got a lot to dive into, so when you're ready, let's go.
And Doug?
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
We appreciate you changing ties. I saw you earlier today. You were wearing a green tie, and we gave you the kill that thing.
I got a little bling going here.
Yes. Now I brought the all blue out.
It's good. It looks good on TV.
So you wanted to talk about the Longhorn baseball team for a little bit.
Yeah, but that's not the show for it. We're going to go on to the ESPN show later.
Yeah, we're going to start that segment. That's the after hours segment of, what do they call that, overtime or something like that?
Right.
Reasonable doubt
overtime. But if you guys want to jump in on the conversation, we'll probably open up the phones around 8:30, maybe a little before. 713-807-1794 is the number. You can also hit us up on Twitter at HCCLA_TV. So guys, we've had the first full week of reoperations, I guess the best way to sum it up, over at the Criminal Justice Center, the old 1201 Franklin building. It's obviously an improvement safety-wise from the jail. But how is it operationally going? I know, Tucker, you've had some cases over there, and public health-wise, how do we think it is? So let's dive into the operations, first of all, and how it's changed.
The operations are, you get over there, and there are 4 floors that are dedicated to jail dockets, and they're only bringing inmates over there. They are allowing the general public to go up to those rooms if there's a contested matter or they've got their person coming in there. That's a good thing, because with the old system, we were doing stuff in the basement of the jail. There was no way for the public to see it. There was no way for family members to be there.
Or the press.
Or the press. So this is an improvement. As again, all our courts are supposed to be open. But what concerns me is, and I think what concerns a lot of the judges, deputies, the logistics are still very tough, getting inmates over there. I've heard a lot of reports from fellow lawyers about they're waiting hours to get their inmate there. It's gotten better. We started last Monday, and it seems it's getting better, but it's not. This is what I call a temporary solution to a permanent problem.
How many courtrooms are actually open for the jail docket?
There are a total of 17, 18, 19, 16.
16 courtrooms.
16 courtrooms, 14 for felonies, 2 for misdemeanors.
Only 2 for misdemeanors?
It's terrible, man.
So the 16 misdemeanor courts have to share 2 courtrooms for jail docket.
Right.
The rationale behind that is that Harris County decided that 95% of the inmates are basically felonies, and the rest were misdemeanors. So that was the basis for that.
And part of that is because, when they're going now and they get arrested, they're getting bonds and they're getting out a lot quicker than they used to. So you're not having the misdemeanors sit there like they used to.
In the felony holdovers, are you seeing them packed to the max, or are you not?
They are packed to the max. Whatever they can bring over on that docket, they're bringing them over, and I think it's 30. That sounds about right. But the holdover cell is full.
And are they, at least, so I'll speak to the misdemeanor side of it. So they're bringing in X amount of inmates that can pack the holdover to the max, but they have a whole another bunch of them, of individuals that are kind of waiting in the wells below. Is that what you're seeing on the felony side, or no?
I don't know. On the felony side, sometimes they'll run a few out, bring a few in.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen. You just don't know when your client is going to get there.
What we've been doing on the misdemeanor side is we've had to, and so you can only do 2 at a time. So if I have 4, I can only put 2 on a list, and then they can only bring those 2 when 2 exit. So it's kind of like a little VIP club. Like you can't come in unless two go out. And so you sit there and you wait. You're not doing anything. You're on your phone, and other courts are blowing you up, asking you, where are you? And you say, well, I'm in jail docket. There's nothing else I can do except wait for my guy to come up. And then they finally bring them up. And then it's been a readjustment having to talk to individuals behind a glass again.
Right, because, for the last, since October, we're talking to them one-on-one in a group where everybody was hearing their business and know what was going on. That's not a good thing. You need to talk to your clients in private. The holdover cell is not a perfect, but it's better than what they had. And again, Doug, you can talk a little bit about this, the health issue. I'm still not convinced we're in a healthy building.
I can only speak to what's been provided to me, and I know that Harris County conducted through Bay Environmental an air quality study that was done roughly right in the middle of April, right before they announced this new jail system over at the CJC in the top 4 floors. They did tests on the basement floor, the first floor, the second floor, and all the way to the top. There were a number of studies, but they found ultimately that it passed and it was clean and safe air. I haven't been over there to attest. I understand there were still some pretty rancid smells in the air. I haven't been able to personally witness that myself. But I can only imagine, based upon what that building has been through in its 20 years in existence and then what it went through in the flood, that those things...
Two floods.
Yeah, 2 floods.
Was it Allison, the other one?
Yeah. And we got another, I mean, who knows what the future holds for it, but...
Another flood.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, they haven't even gotten, as I understand it, I saw something the other day, said they haven't even gotten the bid yet on repairs.
I can't speak to that. I haven't heard. I was involved in one meeting that you were there, Tucker.
Right now, there's a plan, but no cost plan.
Great.
Yes, there's a plan with no cost to it. So I don't think they know what they're getting into. The Commissioner's Court, it's a 4 out of 5, have no clue what's going on there. They may have a clue, but they don't care. 4 out of 5 county commissioners just don't care what's going on down there, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
And I see that inmate processing center just blowing up. I mean, they built that, this thing on a 50-acre or 50-yard plot or whatever, 100-yard plot. It's gone up since once Harvey came in the last 6 months, they're building that whole thing up, and supposedly that's supposed to alleviate some of the jail issues by allowing more space for the public defender's office, which we'll talk about, and allowing individuals to be able to post bonds easier, and having access to
what that
way
is,
out.
What that is, Jose, it's a central clearinghouse. I mean, they're not really going to house people there. They're going to bring them there. This is my understanding, and they're going to be able to, have the PC court do the things they need to do there. But it's not a place to house people. It's a clearinghouse to see where they go from there.
I mean, wouldn't it be at this point? I don't know. I haven't even seen to go look at it. How far along are they on the construction of this thing?
This is what I think they did. I think they painted the first floor that you come in, and then they put a little bit of polish and wax on the elevators, and then you go up, and then you come out, and you.
Oh, you're talking about the CJC.
Yeah, I'm thinking about.
No, I'm talking about the inmate process.
Yes.
Oh, inmate. No, I haven't been inside.
Well, I mean, it's not done yet, right?
Right. Well,
So, how far along is construction?
I think it's supposed to be close to being completed. I thought they were going to roll it out in the middle of this summer. I don't know what the update is on that.
Okay, I was going to say maybe they might want to tack on a rider and maybe put a couple courtrooms over there.
I mean, something. Come on.
But
now.
back to the CJC, what I've noticed is, there is a little new paint, and the lighting is better.
Yeah,
The lighting is better.
you're not going in there kind of like walking in. It's all dim. You have to.
But here's the real key question: how's the elevator wait time right now?
Oh.
Well, okay, so the elevators, this is, again, our wonderful county at work here. You go in and, you have the 6 elevators that go to the felony courts, to the top courts. There's 3 working.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, there was 3 working, before.
Right, before Harvey.
There's one open that lets you walk in. It never closes. It's like a prank for the first time into the CJC. So if you go in the elevators, you make a right, and that one that's open doesn't work.
and their two are roped off.
Yeah.
Are they holding trials there in the CJC for jail cases? Or are they conducting those back at the civil courthouse?
Back at the civil courthouse and back at the Family Law Center on the dockets that they have for cases that have gotten so old. But to my knowledge, they're not scheduled any trials at the CJC for a long time because you got to get jurors up there, and that's a whole different thing.
You know, and they're having the females for the misdemeanors, they're being held in the ceremonial courtroom. And you walk into that courtroom and it's like, this is a perfectly fine courtroom. I don't know what's going on. And they have, 15, 20, maybe 15 or 20 females in the back. And you think to yourself, this could be a perfectly useful courtroom to an individual who's waiting for their trial and waiting for their day in court now. So I don't know. I mean, the rest of it's a mystery, I suppose.
I have a
What do you got
on that. I think maybe people realize we don't want our voting public jurors to come into that building because it's not healthy.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, it would not be a good thing. I don't suppose to have people coming in there with the odors and all sorts of things, thinking, "Hey, I'm not sure if I should be in here."
They might start passing out surgical masks to the jurors.
Right.
I wonder if the fire marshals had a plan of where people are going to jump out windows from that building.
I don't know that the air quality is that healthy at the Harris County Family Law Center.
No, it's
that's
definitely
bad
not.
too.
I've heard rumors that it's terrible.
Sadly, I kind of joked with some around my office because I was heading over there for a setting the other day, and I said, just so you know, I'll be bringing back some mesothelioma for everybody once I return. But it's true. I mean, that place is no better.
Well, that place should have been condemned even before Harvey.
Yeah.
They've got asbestos in there, mold, everything. And from what I've heard from court staff, judges, there are so many people that have gotten sick in there that are there every day.
Well,
that are
and the
getting
offices
sick.
that the DA's office are at out in the Galleria area are no better. They've got problems there too where people were getting sick, employees were getting sick because of those things are in such poor condition as well. So, I mean, it seems like there's a surplus of county buildings that are in rather poor condition right now. And
Well, that's because they go for the lowest bid.
Well, yeah, that's true. And it seems like they don't do anything on the upkeep either.
Right.
What was it Judge Carahan was saying when he was on the show about how the air conditioning vents had built up all this dust?
Yeah.
And
Almost burn the whole place down.
well, because each time they would kick on the system, they wouldn't go up there and clean it. So each time they kicked on the system, all this dust would shoot out.
It's terrible.
This is old dust. Well, on that note, since we're talking about Commissioners Court and all their fine doings, this week the Commissioners Court set on their agenda the continued employment of our Harris County Public Defender, Alex Bunnan. And I know, Doug, you were there speaking. There was a big turnout from the defense bar in support of Alex. There were over, 40 lawyers, I think?
And there were more than that, but we couldn't keep count because the Commissioners Court was full.
Yeah, and so the essence of this is there were some names of some juveniles that were released as part of the bail reform lawsuit to the media. As I understand it, there was a person who was working within or given office space within the PD's office, working for an organization that was kind of helping out with the lawsuit, I understand.
Right. There were really a number of issues.
Yeah.
Let me give you a little bit of background that spurned these issues. One is Alex Bunnan's involvement with the federal lawsuit against the money-based bail system. Two is Alex Bunnan had publicly embarrassed a juvenile judge with a recusal that was successful.
Judge Phillips.
And that spurned through an investigator doing a Public Information Act request, getting Alex Bunnan's emails. Bunnan, being totally transparent, did not try to delay or fight that, fully disclosed everything, didn't have anything to hide. And on the basis of those emails were forwarded from, I believe, an old retired investigator, Kenny Rogers, and sent to the county attorney's office.
The gambler?
I'm sorry?
Kenny Rogers, the gambler?
Yeah, no, not the gambler. The investigator.
All right.
So they sent a letter to Alex asking for explanation about one, aiding the litigants in the bail lawsuit, 2, providing or disclosing the names of defendants of juveniles, and 3, also bestowing a benefit on this individual that had utilized office space within their office. And Alex had responded with, number 1, all the information we provided the litigants. I provided, sworn statements both in favor and of the plaintiffs and the defendants. And really the judge in that case had sided with Alex on those issues. So there's nothing confidential or disclosing. It just didn't show that he was loyal to the Harris County Commissioners, because as a public defender, there's some inherent tension there. He has an obligation, number 1, to his employer, but he also has an obligation and duty and an oath to represent these indigent defendants. And that's what he was doing. 2, as it relates to the juveniles, he is not, the public defender is not subject to the disclosure as the statute requires. And then 3, he's allowed to utilize those defendants' names and providing those when they're doing it for statistical information, trying to determine if the juvenile system was discriminating against black people. And that was the basis for it. And then there became a big brouhaha about, why did you disclose that? Is that illegal? The county attorney had recognized they had not done an investigation, but yet on that very agenda, they were there to determine whether or not they terminate him.
Yeah. Alex has been on this show a couple times. He's been gracious to come on here and spend some time with us talking about things. I mean, universally, he is probably, if not one of the most respected public defender in the nation. I mean, he was sought out to come here and set this up, and has done a marvelous job by all accounts. And I think everybody on both sides of the bar agree that he's set up a first-class public defender's office here in Harris County.
And he's won an award for it.
Right.
A national award recognizing his accomplishments.
And so I know you spoke on behalf of the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association.
I did not get to speak. We ran out of time.
I thought you did get to speak. You were scheduled to speak.
I was scheduled to speak.
See, I only got to watch the live feed for a little bit, then I had to go to a meeting. So I saw you standing behind Nicole. I was ready to speak.
So Nicole DeBoard spoke. Right. She did eloquently. Then Max Seacrest spoke. He did very well.
Tell how all these people are related in terms of what organizations are from.
Nicole DeBoard is a former president of HCCLA. She also is on the NACDL board. And she spoke. Pardon me?
TCDLA.
TCDLA. Then we have David Gerger spoke on behalf of NACDL Strike Force, National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. And then we had David Moore, the president of the Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers, and they all came in. And they all made very, very good points. So all the points were made. And probably the best quote of the entire time was, and there was this back and forth dialogue about from Commissioner Cagle, are you old school? And he kept repeating that to every speaker, are you old school? And then he would press them if they didn't answer it. And David Moore was like, well, I'd like to think I'm old school. However, if I'm old school, I'd be drinking from segregated waters. And that is essentially what the bail lawsuit was about. And that is exactly what the disclosure of the names of the defendants. It's not like they were publicly disclosed, but they were disclosed to a coalition that utilized the data to determine if these blacks were being discriminated against in the juvenile system.
It seemed to me, and like I said, I only got to watch probably about 30 to 45 minutes via the live stream, but it seemed from what I saw and in talking to others about who actually did see the whole thing, it looked like 4 of the 5 commissioners pretty much have their mind made up that if the vote happens, whether it happened that day or probably even after they get a report back from the advisory committee, it seems like they're going to vote to fire him. I mean, it looks like the decision's already been made.
They certainly showed their hand there based upon their demeanor and based upon their questioning. I will say this, thanks to Max Seacrest, talked about how there was an independent advisory board that ultimately hired him that said if you're going to hire him that way, then there ought to be a determination made by that board and a finding represented back to the Commissioner's Court for you to act on. And there was an immediate motion that passed, and so that's where that's going to go. Now, hopefully the cooler heads will prevail, and obviously some legal wisdom, people with I know there's some lawyers there on the commissioner's court, but there needs to be some serious hashing out of the legal issues, because some of the people were of the opinion, for the county attorney, that it was illegal, when in fact there are plenty of other people and experts in this particular area of juvenile law that did not believe it was illegal.
It seems to me that what they are trying to do is basically manufacture some sort of illegality for personal political reasons. If you kind of read between the tea leaves.
Jimmy, you got to realize nobody wanted a PD's office.
Well, I know, and I was going to get to that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that seems like what they want to do. They want to get away from this. Their whole goal, and they're looking to find a way to not just get rid of Alex, but to ultimately get rid of the public defender's office.
Right. They feel like the PD's office is a waste of money, and quite frankly, the PD's office is not a waste of money. They do an excellent job. They fight like heck for their clients. There are some people, some of the judges are against the PD's office, and the judges and county commissioner court go hand in hand. That's part of the problem.
Now, I think you're going to get pushback, and to play devil's advocate here, what really from an optics standpoint looked bad in the hearing was the emails that were read where some of the assistant public defenders were emailing various television shows and producers of television shows from their public defender email address, ostensibly during work hours. And one of the questions that was brought forth is, do you think this is an appropriate use of, taxpayer time? It's a fair question because, if they do have time to be communicating with TV producers in New York and elsewhere, what are they doing? And so that can be spun. I mean, obviously, it doesn't take much time to type out an email and do this, but something like that can be spun in the media. And it's a valid question that I think needs to be addressed. That, what are they doing during the day?
Well, optically, that doesn't look good, but I think the opposite happened. I think they were contacted by by the media and addressing them, and that got forwarded to Alex, and Alex said, "No, we can't do that."
Right. That was
he put an end to it.
Yeah.
So I don't think I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think when people send you an email and they seek you out, but Alex put a stop to it.
Yeah. They clearly want to go back to the old system of, just we're going to
patronage.
We're going to appoint everybody who we want.
Yep.
That system didn't really seem to work all that well for the benefit of those accused in the system. Clearly, it worked well for certain people.
For certain people, it worked very well.
Yeah, but it did not work well for the people caught up in the system. And so. What really can be done? I mean, if the momentum is what it looks, is there any way to stop this, you think?
Well, Jimmy, I go back to when it first started and the Fair Defense Act, and they had the rules, okay, you can only get 2 cases a day. And there were judges that were saying, nope, business as usual.
And you're talking about the appointment system.
The appointment system, yeah. And
not the PD's office.
Not the same PD's office, but again, the PD's office was there to assist the appointment system. That in theory, if you're only getting 2 cases a day, the PD's office would be taking the other ones of the qualified lawyers that could do those cases. So it's a vicious circle, and I don't know where it's going to end.
Yeah, I remember when they were voting whether or not to create the PD's office. And it was a hotly contested issue then, and it divided the defense bar.
It did, really
big
did.
Time. Big time.
There are so many lawyers, not so many, but there are lawyers who just cannot stand the fact that we have a PD's office.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is because it's taking away work from them or something?
Without a doubt, because in the old days, they were just on the judge's list, and the judges could appoint them. And then when the Fair Defense Act came about, in theory, the judge could appoint 2 cases, and talking about felony court, to an individual. Going back to the Fair Defense Act, we were trying to get away from contract lawyers. Contract lawyers, in my mind, are not a good thing. I just think there's too many cases you just can't handle and be a quality representative for your defendants.
How do you think the defense bar or the community as a whole can stop what seems to be the momentum to get rid of it?
The PD's office?
Yes.
So let me ask this question. I don't know, and I don't understand if they're just going to vote to remove the chief public defender, or are they going to just, or is this one step closer to eliminating
Well, I think
I think
PD's
it's one
office?
step.
I think it's one step closer.
Well,
It's like a dragon. You cut off the head,
Yep.
and then it just kind of withers away.
Yeah,
And Alec has been a great leader. I've got nothing but support for him. Doug, I know you have. I mean,
Yeah,
most of the defense bar has
Oh, absolutely.
tons
You
of
know,
support for
and
him.
the whole defense bar rose to the occasion. The county commissioners made, I can't believe he recruited all these people. Alex didn't recruit
No.
anybody.
If
We read
anything-
about it in the paper on Friday, and it was a call to arms, and we were reaching out to him. We had difficulty getting in touch with him. He was very, very stoic about it, and, he didn't feel like he had done anything wrong. Quite frankly, we were there in defense of Alex. Because of his stellar reputation and his credibility and his ethics. But we're also there defending an independent public defender's office. Because here's the problem. They get rid of Alex. There's really nobody that I know of that's qualified to step in and carry
Right.
the torch in the manner that he's done it. But also, then, who wants to take that job?
Yeah.
If you know that you're constantly going to be scrutinized. And here's a man, since 2010, for 8 years hasn't had any work performance issues, and now suddenly the county spent $6.1 million unsuccessfully defending their illegal practices, and now they're publicly embarrassed that the most conservative court of appeals in the country has backed the federal judge that found them to be illegal, and now they're embarrassed again because Alex Bunnan, which is a great point. There is a cronyism. The problem with the juvenile is they don't have a public defender. And the cronyism of these judges being able to appoint all these lawyers over there, it is, I dare say it's corrupt, but man, it's a different vibe in the juvenile courts.
It is.
And it's the big white elephant in the room. And Judge Emmett said, "I can't believe you didn't come to me. I'm the head of this juvenile board." And
Yeah, but
Judge
you
Emmett
also-
recognizes that a lot of changes need to be made over at the juvenile court.
I don't see how you could not be involved in any way in the court systems and know the problems. I mean, we work in the criminal building most of the time. Some spend 100% of their time in there. Others spend time over in the juvenile and the family and the civil courthouse in the courtrooms. But if you work anywhere in there, you know what's going on in all the courthouses. You know the problems. You know the allegations that are going on. You know all the stuff, the undercurrent about who's doing what with certain types of appointments in the juvenile courts, in the family courts, in the civil courts. I mean, you have to really bury your head in the sand, especially if you're the county judge, to not know and not hear all the things that are going on in the courtrooms and the courthouses right there in the square. I mean, everybody knows about it.
I think one thing they ought to do is just go look at the list of lawyers and see their pay.
Well, they don't have to do. They've looked at
It's
that.
there,
I mean, yeah,
but-
I know, but they've all looked
You think
at
they
it.
know?
Go look
They
at
know
the
that?
judicial
Absolutely.
campaign contribution
Right.
report.
Compare those up.
and then connect the
Match,
dots.
match,
Oh
match, match.
man!
But I mean, everybody talks about this stuff. Everybody talks about it at the bar after work or at this judicial fundraiser. I mean, there's always some sort of rumor about somebody going on. So for the county judge to sit there and say, "Well, I can't believe you haven't come to me in 8 years," it's like, how have you not heard about this? I find it amazing that you would need the public defender to come and tell you this. You know you've heard about it.
Well, I mean, and how do you expect you go to your employer and say, "Hey, the problem is your Republican Party, and it's not
Right.
that it's Republican or Democrat, but the problem are people that are your very close, tight-knit friends." That puts him in a catch-22.
Yeah.
An impossible choice to make.
I mean, it seems like we're at kind of a tipping point, really, if this does happen. I mean, between the bail lawsuit, clearly reform is coming. I mean, there was another hearing today about implementing and changing the order and going forward, making additional changes to it. And now you've got this movement by the county commissioners. And look, I mean, okay, there are questions about whether disclosing juvenile names to the public is legal or illegal. I'm not going to sit here and absolutely say it's legal to do so. I mean, I think there are valid concerns about that, and I think we heard arguments that it's not illegal to do so. But guess who the ultimate decider is of that?
Well, it can't be the commissioner's court. It needs to be a valid legal opinion rendered.
It's going to be from the county attorney's office.
Well, and this
Who do
guy.
they answer to?
Exactly.
I mean, here's
and
the
a guy
circle.
who's never practiced juvenile law,
Right.
And it's not an expert in private disclosure or those types of things.
And I mean, just like any good lawyer, they will brief both sides of the issue, and they'll probably say, but we believe this side applies. That's our opinion.
Well, hopefully there'll be some findings in a report coming back from this advisory board as to whether or not law has been violated. And the good news on that advisory board are very skilled lawyers, judges, and people that can come to a much better conclusion than a one-sided affair that might come from the county attorney's office.
Is there any review on the commissioner's court?
Who are you going to review it to?
I don't know. That's what I ask.
I mean,
Is there anything? I mean, they're just going to say no?
I'm unaware of anybody.
That's
higher-
terrible, man.
higher up the line
this
in
is
county.
terrible. It's quite
politics.
frankly,
Ed Emmett's kind of the king.
Yeah.
it just seems like they're coming on a witch hunt. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how it pans out, but that's how it feels, at least.
Well, I mean, yeah. All you can do at that point is file a wrongful termination claim. Which I'm sure the county would love to go through one of those.
You know, if you think about it, in providing information about the bail practices and the fact that these practices were found illegal, that sounds like a whistleblower lawsuit. To me.
That's exactly right.
Yes. I mean, and he should get some protection for it.
That's exactly right.
I'm certainly no employment law expert.
We'll leave it to someone to quit him.
No.
But it seems like there some sort of retaliation on some sort of whistleblowing, or what is he supposed to do? Violate his oath as an attorney, or as his oath as a lawyer, as the chief public defender, to satisfy the whims of a commissioner's court? I don't know. I don't think so at all. And I think if they do let Alex go, which is not going to happen. If they do, Alex will forever go down in the history of this county as a lawyer who stood up for what was right, and will always be remembered for what the accomplishments that he has done, because the public defender's office has some of the best lawyers
They do.
in the country.
Yeah.
Alex not dead yet.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Don't do
man.
an obituary.
Yeah, the man. Come on.
No, I mean, I hope that it doesn't end where, unfortunately, it looks like it might be going, but I really hope it does not end that way, because I think that'll be a huge stain on Harris County if they do something like that.
Well, what happens?
Well, I think what it comes back to is certain people just didn't want a PD's office.
Yeah,
That's what it boils down to.
right.
When the advisory board comes back and says no, you know what, Alex is good, and then they let him go. How does that look?
Yeah, I mean,
It's terrible.
pure politics at that point. If you guys want to jump in on the conversation, 713-807-1794 is the number, or you can hit us up on Twitter at HCCLA_TV. If you want to talk about the PD's office or anything else that's on your mind, call us, tweet us. We're here to talk with you about it. What about this deputy trial that's going on? The Denny's choking. I kind of switched gears a little bit because I think we've kind of beat the PD's office thing a little bit here for a while. But I want to get you guys' thoughts on this, because obviously this is probably the first, high-profile trial we've had since Harvey. We've got cameras in the courtroom. It's being covered pretty extensively by the media. And for those who don't know and you haven't seen it, there is a Harris County Sheriff's deputy on trial for murder.
It's the husband of the deputy.
That's the husband.
Husband of
the deputy. I'm sorry. She was charged as well, but her husband is the one to go to trial first.
He went first, yeah.
And as I recall the facts, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but he was the one who actually had the chokehold on the individual. There was an incident at a Denny's, and this individual
Spilled over into the parking lot.
And the husband ended up on top of the man in a kind of a chokehold, I guess full chokehold, for lack of a better term. And unfortunately, the man passed away. And now the DA's office has charged, I think, both of them with murder, right?
That's correct. Both were charged with murder. The husband is going first. We're in like day 3 of the trial, 4 trial.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I always, this is these kind of cases, anytime an officer is on trial for assault or murders in this case, or in this case it's the husband of an officer, but you know, it kind of puts the defense bar in an awkward position, because for so long, I mean, you are going against the cops, you're cross-examining them, you're trying to prove what they did wrong, and in this case now, this cop's being defended by people in the defense bar, and her husband.
Very able and capable lawyers.
Right.
They're very good, but
Very
let me
good
ask you,
lawyers.
let me throw this out. Do you think the DA overreached in what they charged with?
That's what
I
I'm
think possibly
thinking.
so.
I think did they? Is it overreaching? Classic case of too much.
It's the classic case of a cell phone video coming to bring political pressure to
Right.
bear on the DA. And what was never publicized, what has now come forward in the trial, is the individual who had died had assaulted somebody prior to that. He was charged. They ultimately dismissed those charges. He had also talked about having a .40 caliber gun in his car and going towards that. There was somebody else that he had assaulted and had called 911 and drove out of the parking lot. That 911 tape was played today. And so there were other people, even the wife of the deceased indicated that he's drunk, leave him alone, get away from him. And this individual was going to be driving children home. So there's a lot more concern about this individual that brought this situation to bear, which is why they put him in a chokehold.
And this is why we have cross-examination.
Right.
You know, it begs the question. You said the cell phone video caused the outrage that led to this charge. Do you think this would have gotten charged under the prior administration?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I don't think it would have been a murder charge.
I agree with that. They're gonna. So if for the viewers too, if you've watched the Open, one of one amongst the things that Doug has said is that if this guy wanted to kill this gentleman, had the mens rea to do what he's charged with, he could have done it in 2 or 3 minutes. He was there for, they say, 15 minutes restraining him and holding him down, which is the defense position. And if he wanted to end that life, he could have, but he didn't. And the second that he stopped, they realized that he's not breathing anymore. So apparently they turned him over, and then the officer ended up started to proceed to do mouth-to-mouth, right, CPR.
What's his background? I mean, she's a sheriff's deputy. What's his background? Was he ever in law enforcement?
I have not, other than what I've heard through the media, and I don't want to speculate on what's true and what's not true. From opening statement, they didn't tell too much about this individual, his background, other than what was occurring that day. So I'm not too sure about it. I don't know.
Clearly, that's a tell. He's probably not going to testify.
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
So I mean, you know, the defense has established all these great facts.
They may not need to even put on a case.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't sound like a murder case. So.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound.
Not murder.
Lack of intent. Well, I mean, really,
Total
do
lack
you
of
think
intent.
he sat there and go, "I'm going to kill this guy. We just got into an argument"? I don't think so.
Well, and that's how. That's why they say
You know,
if
and
you
this
want
guy
to
was
kill him.
clearly a danger, which was why there was a 911 phone call made prior to that.
Right.
Prior to them even arriving into this fracas.
I was completely unaware about this other scuffle or fight that happened before. The defense attorney's open, you know, half of it was about this prior incident that happened. I had no idea that there had been several confrontations between several other individuals prior to the individual who's being accused of murder that occurred. 911 calls were had. He interacted with at least 1 or 2 other individuals. There's this whole thing about a gun.
You know, the whole background that I had received from the media was the fact that he had been urinating in the parking lot.
Right.
And that was the only reason why they were holding him for that. And so if you're holding a guy for urinating in a parking lot, that might be a different story. But if you're holding a guy down because he's assaulted multiple people, he's a threat, threatening to go to his car to get his gun, it's a totally different story.
Now, the defense wanted to change venues before the trial. That motion was denied. Have you guys ever successfully sought to have a case transferred out of Harris County?
Well, I had a murder case in Galveston and got transferred to Matagorda. It was the worst mistake I ever made.
Oh man!
Be careful what you wish for, right?
Yes, be careful what you wish for. So,
How tough was it for you to get that venue transfer? I mean, how hard was it for you to meet the standard to get it transferred.
There was so much press on this murder, just so much press. It was all over, and there wasn't much of an issue of getting it transferred.
Gotcha.
But we went to Matagorda County, Bay City, and not pretty.
Might have been better off in Galveston.
In hindsight, without a doubt. But, you got to do what you're supposed to do as the defense lawyer, and you think, okay, everything's prejudiced against my client, got to file the motion. And this was one I wish wasn't granted.
Well, so talk about that a little bit, because, oftentimes lawyers get second-guessed for a strategy decision they make. I mean, that's a lot of what sometimes comes up on appeal, is the decisions that the lawyers made during a trial, either filing the motion or not filing a motion. I mean, talk about what went through your mind there. I mean, you're kind of in a catch-22, because if you don't file the motion, you're going to get criticized for, hey, look, you had all this publicity and you didn't even file the motion. But as you say, hindsight being 20/20, it probably ended up being a worse venue for us.
It was, because you just don't know what venue you're going to go to. That's the thing. You have no clue. And that's a strategic. They all call it strategical decisions, and our strategy, or whatever you want to call it.
Strategery.
That's it. Strategery.
Let me ask you that, so that you have no control over where the case gets transferred to?
Zero.
Judge's call.
Judge's call. Yeah.
And just for the benefit of our audience, I mean, what's the standard that they look at in terms of whether you are able to get a case transferred from the county it's originally filed in to somewhere else?
Well, they look at the press. Sometimes they'll bring in people and ask interviews. Do you think you can get a fair trial here? That type situation. There's different standards, and the thing is, like you just said, be careful what you wish for. But it is a fine line. And you go back to when you're on a jury charge, do you want to include a lesser included? That's sometimes the biggest strategic decision you make, as to whether you want to include a lesser included. Is it going to be all or nothing, or do you give a jury a way out? And like this case we're talking about, the murder case, prime example, the state may ask for a lesser included. I don't think the defense is going to want one.
Well, and why? Can you? Okay, so but why? I mean, why or why not?
Well,
and what would be a lesser included of murder?
There's aggravated assault.
Right.
That's the big one that comes to mind. But you're looking to try and, if you think your individual did something, you're looking to mitigate with a lesser included. But most of my clients, they're all or nothing. I didn't do it. I'm not going for a lesser included.
Well, if you have a lesser included, they have the ability to hang their hat on something lesser and not feel bad letting the guy off the hook for murder.
Right.
I mean, clearly it does. The optics of a guy as big as he is being on top of him with a chokehold, that doesn't look good. But once you put it in perspective of all the facts that surrounded and took place prior to that, it doesn't look nearly as bad, and it looks much more justified. But because here's an individual who died, we all feel sorry for somebody who's passed away, and now you have some lesser included, and you convict on that, but not of murder. So you want it to be all or nothing in a situation like this, where clearly thus far in the trial, it clearly does not look like anything resembling even close to murder.
The state said that they're going to bring an expert to talk about what the evidence will show regarding the bodies shut down when there's a lack of oxygen or asphyxiation over, I think they said like 15 minutes. So I know that there's a lot of science that's going to be involved, but I still don't think that it affects mens rea.
You would have to basically then show the jury that his intent was to cut that off, and not let him breathe, rather than just restrain him.
Right.
And also that he had that kind of knowledge and intended that consequence.
Right. Right.
He was in a classic chokehold, right? Just the police officer type chokehold.
From what I remember seeing in the video.
I think that's right. But that's not intended to kill anybody.
No.
And apparently he might have been, according to the opens, that the evidence will show that he was still struggling while he was being restrained, still struggling back and still trying to do things that might require him to be restrained. Now, granted, he could have just been gasping for air too. I'm not sure. I don't think it's murder. I don't think it's murder.
I don't either. I mean, clearly, if he's the one who applied the chokehold, I mean, if he gets acquitted, there's no way they try the wife, right? Right?
I don't see how. I mean, I see how, but I mean,
You know, based upon how the evidence has played out thus far, and we'll see where the trial goes, but based upon how the evidence has played out,
That's what I'm saying. If there's an acquittal,
you know, if I know there's an off-duty deputy and they didn't do anything about what transpired there, she has an obligation to go and do something.
But if there's an acquittal, there's no obligation.
You know, I think the husband has more legal culpability than she does.
Right.
And I can't see for any stretch of the imagination that if he's acquitted, her case would be tried.
one of the biggest things that I thought was interesting is during the opens were that the defense attorney pointed out that nobody else did anything. They were sitting there screaming like, "Hey, you know, screaming this or screaming that," but nobody came up and said, "Hey, you're killing the guy," or "Hey," nobody thought that this individual was. They were watching a murder take place. Because, you know, the natural human reaction would be to react and to do something and to go and push him off or to go and, you know, help the guy. But nobody did anything.
Well, nobody recognized it.
Right.
Nobody recognized
And, I mean, how was, you know, a murder's an intentional killing. And, you know, the old adage of the old district attorneys of, "Hey, how you doing, juror number 5? Well, how did you know I was going to shake your hand?" Well, because it's obvious. And, if this whole group of people didn't realize that it was obvious there was an intentional killing that was happening, I think the prosecution has an uphill battle. The prosecutor got objected to in their opening statement quite a few times. And I found it surprising that when the defense provided their opening statement, it sounded a whole lot like closing at parts of it, okay? It sounded
That's a good opening for the defense.
and he got zero objections to it, and, you know, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. How do you think Kelly John? This is probably one of the more higher pressed trials that Judge Johnson's been presiding over. What do y'all expect from her? She's been good so far. I mean, you think she's going to handle it well? What do y'all think?
I think she'll do fine.
I think so, too.
I've got a lot of respect for Judge Johnson. She was great as a prosecutor, very fair. And my interactions with her on the bench, she's been very fair. I have not had a trial in front of her, but I just think she would be fair.
To everyone, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's very bright, very smart, very reasonable, and I had the same experience with Tucker, and it sounds like she's made all the right rulings so far.
I agree.
I wouldn't expect anything different.
To everyone in her court, your cases are getting moved. Mine got moved. I had to go. I mean, I'm calling. You know, I had to just randomly check up on somebody and realize, oh wow, yeah, your case is getting moved. They're officially holding docket once a week. So if you're in that court, any lawyers watching or anybody else in there, if you're not on that one day that they're having court, your case is getting moved. So you should probably check it out.
Well, we'll see what happens with the trial. Let's talk a little bit about HCCLA. I mean, we got you just left.
Well, I didn't
You're
leave.
coming in.
Don't say that. I didn't leave.
I don't mean permanently. I'm talking about in the president role. Okay,
Passed the torch.
You left Doug with this whole Harvey mess to deal with that you created. So I want to kind of get a perspective of from both of y'all. I mean, from what we've been through the last 9 months basically with everything, and what you see going forward, how we're going to, because clearly you're probably going to be dealing with it the entire time.
Yeah, no doubt.
The entire year you're here. But how did that, for you, Tucker, I mean, you obviously came in last May and to be president of HCCLA. You clearly, probably at the time, thought about certain things you wanted to accomplish in the organization.
Well,
were you able to do that?
Well, everything was rocking and rolling along great. I thought this was an easy gig until August 27th. And then, you know what. But it's a testament to the membership, to our board of directors. We rallied around. There was so much to do. I think we did as well as we could do given the circumstances, because a lot of things were not in our control. What we were trying to do is keep the membership informed and tell them what's going on, how we're going to open the courts, when we're going to court. And for the first 3 months, that was what we were trying to do. And then as the months went on into 2018, we began to say, okay, what can we do better? What needs to be fixed? And there's still a lot that needs to be fixed. And Doug, I'm sorry, I'll hand this over to you because...
Well, before you do that,
okay.
I wanted to ask you, was there any one or two things that when you came in last May that you wanted to get accomplished that Harvey kind of derailed, that you didn't get to do or get started while you were president?
Well, it comes up with different topics. We had some issues with bonds. We were certainly fighting the jail situation, the bonds. That had been an ongoing deal. Then became the issue about judges signing bond revocations without notifying lawyers, and we've addressed that, or we're still fighting that. And I leave it up to my membership to say, okay, this is what's important to us, and then I try and follow through on that.
On to you, Mr. Murphy.
Well, we've inherited a beautiful mess, and there are a lot of things we still can't control. But there are some things that we can provide input, and we've tried to do that in my month and 4 days on the job. And so far the judges have been receptive, and having gone to the CJC meeting, I see that their hands are tied too. Mm-hmm. And it's frustrating with all involved. And I'll tell you, Commissioner Raddick was at that meeting, turned around and basically said, this is all you're getting, and that's all we can do for you. The state requires that we fund these state district courts. The state doesn't give us any funds for that. And so he's very frustrated really with the entire criminal justice bar, whether it be the judges, the DA, the defense lawyers. I think they've had their fill. And granted, I mean, let's be honest and let's be reasonable. This hurricane, you can't really prepare for it.
No.
And so the county has faced a lot of struggles. And granted, the situation we're in the misdemeanor building, the civil courts, and the jail is far from perfect, and we're just going to have some difficulties over the next 2 to 3 years. But hopefully we could find some solutions to the problems that hopefully this will never happen again, God willing.
It's a big hope, given where we live. What are some of the things that over the next 9 or 11 months now, since you've completed the first month, what are some of the things you'd like to accomplish personally to see, get done by HCCLA under your watch?
Well, I think this thing had popped up basically a week ago, and that is with the Public Defender's Office. I think that has moved to the forefront now. Protecting the independence of that office is paramount and has been pushed to the front burner, whereas that was never even on my plate a month ago. One of the things I wanted to do with HCCLA is because of the hurricane, we've lost some of our membership, and so I've been trying to grow that back. That was number one. And number two, we wanted to provide more substantive CLE, educational, not just from a legal standpoint, but also from legal strategies and legal trial techniques.
I think one of the things that Doug and he and I have talked about that he really wants to work on is getting more members of the federal bar involved. And I think that's a great idea because those guys...
in charge of that.
Yeah, well, no.
Gosh.
But those guys are incredible lawyers. They're smart, and we need their input.
Absolutely. I mean, Harris County is blessed with abundance of the best criminal defense lawyers in the country, and I believe that in my heart of hearts. And we appreciate you taking over that and
kudos to Jimmy.
Come over to help us with Harris County.
Yeah, I'm in the recruitment process.
I think we've got 2 in that category.
I think we've got at least 2 coming over. So we've got some minor accomplishments, baby steps within the first 30 days.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun. It'll be interesting to see where the next year takes us on everything.
Wouldn't it be a thing in history to see that when the Public Defender's Office was in such turmoil, the defense community rallied together, and it was Doug Murphy that led the charge against the Commissioner's Court and restored or at least kept and led us into the next phase. Wouldn't that be a story?
Well, I'm not, again, taking any credit. There are a lot of people behind the scenes that have taken the charge, and my name's at the forefront. But I tell you, there's the talent behind me and all the desire and the passion. Man,
Doug, you will
they're a bunch of
find
raging bulls.
you will find that you have an incredible board, and when you ask them to do something, they'll do something.
Oh, it was sent out a couple emails, and everybody was there ready to go, fully on board.
Well, you know, I mean, when the entire system collapsed under you,
Under you.
I mean,
Harvey was my fault.
everybody looked to Tucker, was like, "What's Tucker gonna do?" And I will say, as a board member who served under your watch, who participated in the meetings and who was there, yes, everybody looks to the president to tell us where we're going now. And it's not about, you know, we're a group of defense lawyers, a group of lawyers who have all our own ideas on how to do things and how we're supposed to proceed. But one of the great things that I have seen, at least with our board, is that when we all make a decision, and when after the president, and which has always been a common theme of what do the members want to do, what are the members' interests, what are the members' goals and observations about how to proceed. Okay, and we make that decision, and we make the decision. And it's always been, this is the decision, okay, lead, and we all follow.
It's still like herding cats.
It's, I believe it. And you did, and you held it together. The idea that you could somehow keep everybody together and you know, kind of glue all the pieces together and make us not collapse is amazing. And now now it's here. Now it's here. Heavy lies the crown.
And well, you do the best you can.
That's right.
I remember when the hurricane happened, I sent out one of the few tweets I've ever sent out in my life offering free legal services for anybody whose name was Harvey who wanted a name change.
Change it up. What?
Even though you don't do that practice?
No, but I can figure it
Oh,
out.
you can figure that one out? We only got about 30 probably less than 30 seconds now. I appreciate you guys joining the show.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's
Yeah,
Happy
thank
to
you
be
very
here.
much, Jimmy.
We are-
Thank you, JV.
We are going to bring you back for sure, and I know you're going to be back because we're going to recruit you to come back to the show.
Okay.
Talk with us.
All right.
So that's all the time we have for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully we will be on next week. It's our plan to be on every week. Last week we just ran into a little unanticipated issue with some scheduling. So we hope to be back now, consistent, right, JV?
Here we go. I think we've put on something close to 200 shows.
We have. I think we're quickly approaching 200. We're going to have to, since we took over.
Yeah.
Did Seinfeld ever have 200 episodes?
I'm going to have to go look that
They're
up.
close.
You know, arguably, are we a show about nothing?
No,
Uncle Leo! Uncle Leo!
Anyway, it's all
Night,
good
Dolores.
times. Huh? Yeah, exactly. So we will see y'all next week. For Julio Vela, Tucker Graves, Doug Murphy, I'm Jimmy Ardwan. Good night, everybody.